This one's going to be a little bit more of a thought experiment, okay? Because what we have here is, yeah, big boxing match between, which Paul is, Jake Paul, right? I don't know. I don't fucking keep up with that kind of dog shit content on YouTube. Jake Paul, Logan Paul, Chris Paul, I don't give a fuck what any of these people are doing. But they're stepping in the boxing arena, okay? And they're drawing a lot of eyes and they're drawing a lot of money. And a lot of people are thinking that this is going to be the future of boxing. Now, boxing was on its deathbed for a long fucking time. You had the Klitschko brothers at the top. Just as the old axiom goes with boxing, it's like wherever the heavyweight division goes, that's what happens, or that's where the rest of the sport goes. And for the longest time, heavyweight boxing was dead and dusted and in the ground. Sure, you had your De La Hoyas and you had your Mayweathers at the time, but they weren't nearly as popular as the guys like Tyson, Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, even in the early 90s, and then even before that, boxing was king of the world. Now you have YouTubers. Jake Paul, I've seen some of his fights. I've seen some clips of his fights, okay, to be more specific, and he's good for somebody who hasn't been training that long. But against a guy like Tyron Woodley, who I've seen a little bit fight, because my history with the UFC when Woodley was fighting, that was about at the tail end of when I was really caring about UFC, because my heyday when I didn't miss a single fucking event was, what was that, UFC 94 all the way through till the Anderson Silva Chris Weidman rematch. I watched every single event, and Tyron Woodley was one of the young bucks coming up there at the end of all that stuff. He didn't seem like he was anything that special, and yeah, he won the strap, but that was when the welterweight division was just absolute dog shit post GSP. Hey, somebody's gotta say it. That's a fucking, they used to be like top tier shit. You had real killers from the gatekeeper level all the way to the top. But now I couldn't even tell you who's the fucking champ of welterweight. And now again, you're getting all of these one-off events when it comes to boxing here. This is what was so great about the UFC at the time, okay? Because you'd watch a card and it would be stacked from the prelims all the way to the top when they had one pay-per-view a month and then they'd have a couple of TV shows. You'd have your Versus card, and then when they moved over to Fox, you'd have the FS1 or you'd have the Fox proper cards that would come out once a while. You'd have enough high-level fighters in every weight class that you have there that you put on a compelling show from top to bottom. And boxing, why it died its death was because they built everything up for every card. It would be $60, $70, $80 per card for one fight. And then when the guys on top weren't delivering, when you had the Klitschko brothers battling the fat-ass James Toney, or you're trying to sell a fight that nobody's really going to get knocked out because Floyd Mayweather, like, what does he have, 3 or 4 knockouts to his name? Everything would just go the distance and it would just turn into a defensive exhibition. No shots taken at Floyd Mayweather. He's one of the best to ever do it, but he also was very selective when it came to picking his opponents. And is that 51-0 record a little inflated? Yeah, kind of. He crushed a lot of cans in there. But boxing died a horrific death and then started to come back up because there's 3 killers in the heavyweight division right now. You got Tyson Fury, you got Anthony Joshua, and you got Deontay Wilder right now. All 3 of those guys are just fighting back and forth, and it looks like Tyson Fury's probably going to come out on top for what it's worth there, but boxing's kind of on the come up. And then you got this Sideshow, which I kind of think both can exist right now. Do I think that this is going to take over boxing because there's going to be a whole hell of a lot of eyes on there? No, it's fleeting because this is the Jake Paul show featuring a bunch of washed up fighters, because Tyron Woodley, he's been out of the game for a minute. He's 39 years old. Okay, what, he just knocked out Ben Askren not that long ago. Ben Askren was never known for his hands. Tyron Woodley, he has a little bit more striking to his name, but it's still not Anderson Silva level, okay? It's still not Vitor Belfort. These guys are still having boxing engagements because exhibition fights with legends sell, because there are very few stars coming up in the game right now. Bankable kids, real reliable stars for the future, and that's a problem with sports in general, outside of the context of the big 4 professional sports. So these little one-offs, all of these YouTubers with huge fucking audiences, building up, using drama to try to build off to a couple of big paydays. What happens when Jake Paul ends up facing a striker? Like, he might get fucking absolutely flatlined by Tyron Woodley on Sunday, okay? That's 100% a possibility. It's quite likely, okay? Because these are both comparable sized individuals. Just the experience on one side of the aisle is significantly different. But age is also something significantly different. It'll be interesting, okay? Because if this continues to go on, Paul will eventually meet his match, and then we're going to have to see if this spectacle has any legs to it, or if this is just a unique moment in time where a lot of people are making a lot of money. So again, there's a lot of excuses, there's a lot of speculation as to why this is so popular. I laid out my position for it, mostly because Jake Paul, big audience, has had a little bit of success when it comes to the boxing world and under dubious circumstances. Take it for what you will, but again, it's also trying to be spun as, okay, you take a look here, no F-bombs, cheap shots, or yo mama jokes, written by a total boomer, during the weigh-ins. Jake Paul on eve of a fight helps get him to $500 million in boxing earnings. Impressive, because what, he's had like 3 quasi-professional fights, these exhibition bouts against former athletes and former UFC fighters. It's very strange. Jake Paul and former UFC champ Tyron Woodley weighed in Saturday morning for their big fight Sunday night in Cleveland, and unlike many of their other interactions during the week leading up to the match, the weigh-in was calm, orderly, and non-dramatic. Paul weighed in at 190 pounds, while Woodley tipped the scales at 189.5. Essentially the same. Come on now. Woodley made it seem earlier in the week like he would be carrying a large chip on his shoulder and be looking to punish Paul for the derogatory treatment of Woodley's mother by Paul and his crew. Yeah, trying to get a little bit of fucking attention for a fight that I don't know how many people are going to be turning out for. It's going to be a big thing, but again, who's watching it for the sports aspect of this? This is just, once again, more of a freak show, kind of a spectacle. Paul knocked out former UFC fighter in his most recent bout. Before that, yeah, he knocked out cold NBA player Nate Robinson. Okay, Woodley at 39 years old is 39 years old. He's well past his prime, but in his prime he was considered one of the best welterweight fighters in the history of MMA by some absolute fucking brainlets. He was the best for his time, but his time was a weak time. You get where I'm saying? Paul needs to win this fight in order to continue his big draw on Showtime, which has invested a great deal into his career, banking on the 24-year-old to continue to carry the torch for his entire sport as the only legitimate draw and bankable star. I would throw in the caveat of the 3 big heavyweights that are out there right now, because they pull massive numbers in the UK. Like, they're pulling 9 digits over there, so let's not undersell this. Again, I don't think he gets flatlined on this. The next fight isn't nearly going to be anywhere as close to this profitable. I will goddamn guarantee it. They're not doing anything to raise up the sport of boxing. This is just a platform to showcase freak shows, okay? Try to think into it way too much by saying, oh, you know what, they got all of these clean interactions. Oh, yes, there was a little bit of, oh, your mother. Like, they're trying to do what WWE has done to professional wrestling. This is how we're going to segue into this. Vince McMahon nationalized the sport of professional wrestling, spun it off into being sports entertainment, and he was wildly successful with poaching his talent and making them big stars, even though, like, okay, when he took Hulk Hogan from the AWA, he was already on the come up, and the only reason that he jumped ship from the AWA to the WWF at the time was because Vern Gagne, who was booking the AWA, wouldn't allow Hulk Hogan to take the role of Thunderlips in Rocky 3, my mistake, because he wanted Hogan to be a wrestler full time, and Vince was alright with doing that because it would get more eyes on the product. Therefore, he hopped ship, made him a big star. Did that appearance in Rocky 3 really add to anything? It's tough to parse the two out, but it was important at the time. It was once again another one of these cases of spectacle over substance, okay? AWA ended up dying off for a multitude of really bad reasons because there's only so many belts you can put on Greg, okay? It was mismanaged into the ground for thousands of fucking reasons, mostly because the AWA was totally pilfered by Vince McMahon and scraps were sent over to Ted Turner with WCW and NWA, but whatever, okay? So then it gets weird here, okay? Because WWE, by saying, oh yeah, they're no longer scouting independent wrestling for new talent signings, they don't want wrestlers anymore. They want to create their own stars. They want to create their superstars for sports entertainment. People got to remember, this was the same strategy he did during the New Generation. New Generation sucked a weather balloon full of dicks. It was a terrible fucking time to be a professional wrestling fan. And this is the same thing that he tried to do again by making these athletes, these fitness models for the women, okay? You guys remember the Divas division. If you were watching during the time, I hope you weren't wasting your time doing that. I was punched out at the time. I filled in the gaps. And then you had the run, we're talking about, what was this, like late 2000s all the way up until the mid 2010s, where you had all of these former football players We had these basketball players coming in. Oh yeah, we can make real athletes and we can teach them how to be professional wrestlers. You can't fucking do that. Professional wrestling is its own fucking beast, okay? It's a multitude of things. Is acting important? Is learning how to talk? Is all the character work important? Yes, that is very important. And if somebody doesn't have the gift of gab, if somebody can't articulate their points properly, if they can't sell people on a match, if they can't talk people into the building, they're totally fucking worthless, okay? And this is the problem with modern day WWE. They want their brand to be at the top, okay? They just want to staff themselves full of yes men. And take a look at the government right now, staffed full of yes men. What's happening? Some of the worst atrocities in the modern age are happening right there because there's too many yes men. There's not enough people saying, hey, guess what, guys? This is fucking stupid. Because there were people, they were trying to make a difference over there, okay? They had NXT, they had it staffed with a whole bunch of indie kids. And you know what? The people who liked professional wrestling and the guy who was running NXT at the time, he really liked work rate. He really liked taking the guys from the indies who were the big names, who could talk people into coming to see the next fucking GCW show, the next IWA show. Guys who could draw whether they had the strap or not. And now, all of a sudden, oh yeah, we don't want the guys who come from the indies because they're too tough to teach, okay? We got to teach them the WWF, yeah, the WWE style, which is 5 moves, work for 5 minutes. God bless. And then just do a bunch of fucking goofy backstage skits. It didn't work in the early 90s. Because, oh yeah, the early 90s, they had Bret Hart, okay? They had Shawn Michaels, guys who were complete, fucking 5-tool players, legendary talents. Then you also had big, slow, stupid Kevin Nash. If you want to laugh, take a look at his fucking Twitter feed. That dude is nuts. You had the Goon. You had Adam Bomb. The women's division was so bad they had to fucking close up shop for like half a decade. And that's exactly the thinking that they're doing right fucking now. Mostly because Vince McMahon, oh yeah, he had a whole staff of people bringing in all these indie talents, okay? But now, who does he have around him? The same guys who led him down that path in the fucking late 2000s, early 2010s. Bruce Pritchard. Fucking John Laurinaitis. He's got those same guys back around him. The same guys. Oh yeah. We can make these worthless fitness models come in and they can put on 3-minute matches for the Divas, the Butterfly Championship. The fuck are you doing? Nobody wants to see that. You were on the cusp of something really good and you kept signing up all of these girls who were doing good stuff on the indies, only to let them put on killer matches in NXT, cut killer promos, and then immediately bring them up to the main roster so they can throw fucking pies at each other and then work 3-minute matches that you said were, oh, that's a thing of the past. We're conducting a revolution. And it's like, shut the fuck up. You don't believe any of this shit. You have no long-term planning. But this is what you want to do. Your competition over there, AEW, they're all about professional wrestling. They know what's going on between the ropes. They're taking those characters, those guys who drew money on the indies, bringing them up, giving them actual fucking paychecks to work, to be great, to have freedom, to have control over what their fucking character is and where they're going. Meanwhile, you just want a bunch of actors. You just want some fucking soap opera talents, okay? I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. If you liked wrestling way back in the cut, if you liked it during the Attitude Era, those guys could go. There were a bunch of real shit workers, but they were hot at the time, okay? Because the guys up at the top, Stone Cold, he could go. The Rock, not a big fan, he could still go. Undertaker, come on now. And then over on WCW, same fucking thing. Guys who could work at the top. Full cards, especially on the WCW side. You had the Cruiserweight guys in the middle. You had Eddie Guerrero. You had Rey Mysterio. You had Hoovy. You had the Japanese guys getting brought over due to the contract with New Japan at the time. Then once WCW started to try to copy what WWE was doing with the whole sports entertainment shit, all of those guys, all of those fucking mid-card guys, the Chris Benoits, the Dean Malenkos, the Perry Saturns, they ended up crossing over, the Chris Jerichos. They hopped over, they filled up those cards, and you take a look at those late 90s, like 99, 2000, 2001 cards that were over there, that were the late stages of the Attitude Era, all the way from top to the bottom. They were fucking stacked and they were full of talent. Just sports entertainment, okay? They keep saying, WWE keeps thinking that it's going to work. It's just never, ever proven to work. People like professional wrestling, okay? They shit on it because they see the worst aspects of WWE putting on these fucking horrific skits, having these untalented, uncoordinated fucking goofs come into the ring. Oh yeah, you're gonna work a 5-minute match and we're gonna lay everything out for you. And then the moment one thing goes wrong, they forget all their choreography and then it just ends up looking like 2 fucking pieces of meat slapping together until somebody finally fucking lays down for the 3 count. It's great stuff if it's done right. There's nothing quite like it. in professional wrestling. It's just WWE so big they can continue to do this type of shit. But you keep taking a look at those ratings, and especially with CM Punk hopping up on AEW, they're closing the gap. And if some of those other signings end up coming true, looks like they're going to be, in about a month's time, Bryan Danielson's going to be over there on AEW. That's going to be making a difference. You just take a look at the ratings for Rampage when CM Punk showed up, and then for Dynamite as well. They're closing the gap on Monday Night Raw. Something nobody could have seen coming a couple years ago when AEW started up. It was always a thought. It was always an idea. But hey, WWE and AEW are going in completely different directions. That's why, yeah, there's probably a future for sports entertainment. And you know what? They'll just continue to get smaller and smaller and smaller as they just keep trying these really bad ideas over and over and over again. Just like with the Jake Paul stuff, man. Hey, there's going to be a market for these fucking freak show boxing events, okay? Remember celebrity boxing way back in the late 90s? Yeah, this is today's equivalent. It's just here to pop a rating. It's just here to make a couple of people rich. It's not here to grow the sport any. But yeah, it was a little bit different than what we normally do over here on the channel, but it was kind of cathartic. These are things that I think about all the time anyways, so might as well, hey, put them on film, I guess. And if you did enjoy that, yeah, maybe we'll be cutting some more clips like this in the future. And if not, if I'm completely wrong, well, there's always that second channel. I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.